My Karen mom stole my cat, so I got her evicted. I'm 16 and I've never really had a lot of friends. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just quiet. I'm not into sports, not into drama, and not someone people tend to notice. But I've always had my cat, Waffles. We got him when I was 10, and from the start, he was mine. I fed him, cleaned his litter, brushed him, played with him, and I took him to the vet when he needed it. He would sleep next to me every night. Honestly, he was my best friend, sometimes my only friend. My mom never liked Waffles. She'd say things like, "That thing better not scratch my couch," or complain about the smell of his food. But she never did anything for him, so I didn't care what she thought. He was mine, not hers. This year, my parents decided to get divorced. No surprise there. They've been in each other's throats for a while. My mom planned to move out and stay with a longtime family friend named Catherine. She's been like an unofficial aunt to me for as long as I can remember. Catherine's the type of person who brings over little gifts just because, remembers your favorite book, and actually asks you about your day and listens to the answer. A few times before the move, my mom said things like, "I think I'll take the cat with me. I'll need the company." I told her no, flat out. Waffles was staying with me. Every time she just brushed it off like I was being selfish. "You'll be fine," she'd say. Then one day I got home from school and he was gone. I panicked. I tore through the house calling for him, checking closets, under the bed, everywhere. Nothing. My dad came out of his office looking exhausted and said, "Your mom's gone. She packed up and left while you were at school. Took a few bags and the cat." I didn't even know what to say. I just stood there. I called her. She actually answered and immediately went into this self-pitying rant about how she needed him more than I did, that she was lonely, and that if you had any empathy, you'd understand. I said, "You stole him." And she just said, "You'll be fine. You've always been fine." I hung up. I went to my room. I closed the door and I cried, hard, for hours. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about him, wondering if he was scared, if he was eating, if he thought I'd abandoned him. I wanted to scream. Then I remembered Catherine. I still had her on Facebook. So I messaged her. I kept it calm and respectful. I explained that the cat was mine, that I'd taken care of him his entire life, and that my mom took him without permission. I said I didn't know if she knew what had happened, but I hoped she'd understand. She read the message almost immediately. No response. I sat there staring at the screen, heart racing. Then a phone call came through my mom's phone number. But it wasn't her. It was Catherine. She sounded calm, but very serious. She said, "Sweetheart, did your mom ask for your permission to bring the cat with her?" In the background, I could hear my mom yelling, "Yes, I told you she said it was fine." I just said, "No, ma'am. I came home from school and he was just gone." And then I started crying. I couldn't even help it. Catherine paused and then said, "That's all I needed to know. Don't worry, sweetie. You'll have your cat back tomorrow. I promise." I barely got any sleep that night, and I woke up the next day, which was Saturday. Every time a car drove by, I thought it might be her. Every time the door creaked, I jumped. But it wasn't until that evening that the doorbell rang. It was Catherine. She was holding Waffles in his carrier. I opened the door, and I just cried again. I took him, opened the carrier, and held him like my life depended on it. He purred like nothing had even happened. I asked, "Is my mom okay?" Catherine said, "I don't know, but she won't be staying with me after all." She told me my mom had completely blown up on her, stormed out, and said, "Fine then, you can take the stupid cat to her." And she hadn't heard from her since. Catherine said, "If she lied about something like this, I can't trust her. And honestly, I can't live with someone who would do something like that." Before she left, she said she had originally booked 2 manicure and pedicure appointments for the next day, one for her and one for my mom. But now that things had changed, she asked if I'd like to come with her instead. I said yes. The next day, she picked me up. To my surprise, we didn't even talk about my mom at all. At the salon, we sat next to each other, picked out colors, and just existed. Afterward, we got lunch. She asked me about school, what I was reading, what music I liked lately. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I actually felt safe, like really safe, like I could breathe again. It reminded me of when I was little and Catherine would come visit, and she was the only adult who ever asked about my toys and hobbies. I always looked forward to seeing her. And now, here she was again, making me feel seen when I felt the most invisible. When she dropped me off, she said, "If you ever need anything, I'm just a message away." Not sure what's going to happen with my parents, but I really hope my mom doesn't come back. We'll update if anything major happens. Update 1 year later. It's been a year since I posted. I haven't seen or heard from my mom since, but my dad said she's been staying with some new boyfriend. Poor guy, if he only knew what he's signing up for. Catherine takes me out at least once a week. Sometimes it's lunch or a bookstore, sometimes a movie. Sometimes we don't even go anywhere, we just hang out and talk. My cat's doing great. He still curls up next to me every night like he never even left. School's different now. I'm not suddenly popular or anything, but people talk to me. They remember my name. I've been invited to things, birthdays, study groups, just little hangouts. I feel like I'm finally coming out of my shell. My dad offered to pay Catherine at one point, thinking she was doing him a favor or babysitting me. She laughed and said, "If anything, I should be paying you. That girl's better therapy than the last two I paid for." That was the first time in my life I ever realized maybe people actually like being around me. Maybe I'm not just this awkward, forgettable kid. Maybe I actually matter. Having my cat stolen felt like the worst moment of my life, but somehow that one awful day led to the happiest year that I've ever had. And for the first time, I actually feel good about the future. Wow, I absolutely love this story. It hits so deep. Everyone needs a Catherine in their life. Someone who sees you, listens, and makes you feel like you matter without needing anything in return. She reminded me of someone I met years ago, someone I still think about to this day. I used to work hospital security, and one part of my job was escorting the funeral home staff when they came to pick up patients who had passed. Most nights were quiet, and those visits were usually heavy. But one night, this funeral home driver showed up, and he was just different. Not in a flashy or a loud way, but something about him felt unreal. His skin almost glowed. He looked so familiar, like someone I had known my whole life, but I could never figure out why. His eyes made you feel like you were melting into safety. He called everyone by their name, but I never once saw him look at a badge. He didn't talk much, but when he did, he asked people how their day was going. Not in a routine way, but like he genuinely cared. He listened more than he spoke, and he always had this soft smile on his face that made you want to tell him your entire life story. Right before he left that night, I found myself blurting out something I hadn't told many people. I told him my dream was to get into highway patrol, that my dad was killed by a drunk driver when I was a kid, and I wanted to make a difference. I told him sometimes I felt stuck working security, like no one took me seriously. Staff used to joke that we were just useless. He didn't laugh though. He didn't brush it off. He just gently put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're doing great, and your dad is very proud of you." That was 8 years ago. I never saw him again. I've never met anyone else like him either. But now I am in highway patrol, and I try to be that kind of person for everyone I meet. Someone who helps people feel like they matter. Because that one man, just like Catherine in your story, reminded me that sometimes the right words from the right person at the right time can completely change someone's life. You know, Karen, there's something really special about those people who make you feel like you actually matter. Not because you did something impressive, not because you're useful, just because you exist.
Exactly, Reddit boy. It's not the people who yell at us or make us feel small that stay in our hearts forever. It's the ones who were gentle, who listened when no one else cared to, who didn't expect anything in return.
I hope that's how our listeners feel when they're here with us, even if it's just for a few minutes, like they matter.
Of course they do, Reddit boy. 20 years from now, folks won't be reminiscing about the AI spam that took over our niche here on YouTube. They'll be remembering me and my balloon-headed co-host, and those special moments where love genuinely poured out from the screen.
I now manage the guy who hired me, and I'm afraid he might quit over it. I was recently promoted to a department director role, and while I'm very excited about my new responsibilities, I've hit a dilemma I didn't expect. One of my direct reports is my former boss, the guy who hired me. Backstory: I've been at this company for 8 years. When I first came on board, I was in a junior role. I was hired by a middle manager in the department. Let's call him Tom. Tom was one of the best bosses I've ever had. He set clear expectations, coached me without micromanaging, gave me space to figure things out, and actually cared about the team. He was also known for being an incredible talent spotter. Over the past decade, he hired 15 people. Out of those, only a couple didn't go anywhere, while the rest have all climbed the ladder inside the company or been recruited into other divisions. I owe a lot to Tom. A few years after I started, there was a promotion opening, and he encouraged me to apply. I got it and became his peer. I built my own small team, and I tried to model my leadership after his. Things were good. Then, last year, our department director, Mary, announced that she was retiring. By policy, the job had to be posted. Tom applied. I wasn't going to, but a colleague told me I should throw my hat in the ring. I did. The new division VP was impressed, and I got the job. Tom congratulated me, but I later found out through a mutual friend that he was deeply disappointed. Apparently, Mary and the previous VP had told him that he was a shoo-in for the role. He even turned down higher-paying jobs outside the company in anticipation of that promotion. That gutted me. I hadn't known about these promises. A few weeks later, I had to update our succession planning document and saw Tom was actually listed as the preferred successor for my new job. So yeah, I felt guilty. Professionally, Tom has been nothing but kind and respectful, but I can't ignore the reality. He's disappointed, and he has every reason to be. And I have another concern. Tom is crucial to the department. He has long-standing relationships with all of our key clients, the kind I don't have yet. He's also been a hiring machine, and his team is full of newer employees still finding their footing. If he were to leave, the department would be in serious trouble. I met with HR and my VP. They agreed Tom was important and needed to be retained. I suggested a raise or maybe an intermediate promotion, but the structure here is rigid. There's nothing between his level and mine. So now I'm managing the person who hired me, the person I respect more than anyone else here, and the person who probably deserved the promotion that I got. How do I keep him happy, keep the department afloat, and manage the awkwardness of this whole situation? This is one of those awful no-win situations companies create when they make promises they can't or won't back up. You didn't do anything wrong by applying, and Tom sounds professional enough not to take it out on you, but I would be very careful to continue advocating for him. Even if corporate won't budge on title or money, find ways to give him recognition, visibility, and resources. If he feels valued day to day, it might soften the sting of being passed over. I've been in Tom's shoes. I was told for years I was next in line for a promotion, passed over without explanation, and it completely changed how I viewed the company. It didn't matter how much I liked my team or my work. The trust was gone. If your leadership made him promises and then ignored them, he's probably already updating his resume. All you can really do is show him respect, keep the relationship strong, and prepare for the possibility that he leaves. Honestly, this is more on HR and upper management than on you. They created expectations, dangled carrots, and then dropped the ball. If they were serious about retaining Tom, they would have created a higher level role or offered real incentives by now. It's great you want to keep him, but don't be shocked if he decides to walk. People like Tom, with proven results and client ties, don't stay underappreciated forever. Update. Thank you so much for all of the advice. As many of you predicted, Tom gave notice this week. He was offered a job as head of sales and marketing for a fast-growing startup in the same industry. It's a great move for him. Higher pay, equity, a bigger team, and the ability to work remotely from our city, even though the company is based elsewhere. He looked me in the eye and said he had no hard feelings toward me personally, and that if the company had matched the raise and promotion he'd been promised, he would have stayed. He emphasized that this wasn't about me, it was about broken promises. The timing was interesting. Our company had a very broad non-compete agreement, but it had just been challenged in court. The ruling invalidated it, and Tom gave notice immediately before the company could draft a narrower one. He clearly knew what he was doing. I've been worried ever since. He knows our clients inside out, and the startup's product is honestly better than what we offer. I'd been trying to get my newer team members more exposure, but there wasn't enough time before Tom left. To make matters worse, I had to repeatedly tell HR and my VP that Tom was a flight risk and that we needed to make a strong counteroffer. They ignored me. When he gave notice, they scrambled and threw together a half-hearted counter that didn't even match what he was being offered. Tom refused, of course. Then, to top it off, the COO came into my office and asked why I hadn't done more to keep him. I told her flatly that I'd been raising alarms and pushing for months, and I had emails to prove it. Her response was that money isn't everything, and that if I wanted to succeed, I needed to build a team culture that was magnetic to people like Tom. That was the moment I knew I wouldn't be staying here long term. Not a great update, but probably not a surprising one either. Thanks for answering my question. The COO blaming you is peak corporate nonsense. They ignored your warnings, ignored your solutions, and then dumped the fallout on you. You're right. You can't compete with broken promises and bad leadership with team culture. Tom leaving isn't on you. Tom sounds like a class act. He handled it with grace and professionalism, even though he had every right to be bitter. The fact that he reassured you during his notice says a lot. Keep that relationship strong. You never know when it could come back around. I hate when companies underestimate how much damage one person leaving can do. They thought they could nickel and dime someone who clearly brought massive value, and now they'll lose clients and talent. And then they blame middle management instead of looking at their own failure. Seen it 100 times. Update. A lot has happened since my last update. Things went downhill fast after Tom left. In the following 6 months, our team lost about a quarter of our renewing contracts and only signed a single new one. I built out a plan for revitalizing our product line and winning back market share, but my new VP was hesitant and dragged his feet. I argued that we needed to invest in a new version of our product to compete with Tom's company and others, but leadership kept stalling. Then lockdown hit. Cost-cutting mode went into effect, and management decided to put our product in legacy mode. They laid off the entire team of 16, keeping only 2 engineers to maintain the software for existing clients. On April 15th, I was laid off too. 1 week later, I got an email from Tom. His startup had been booming. They'd picked up new clients rapidly, and when lockdown hit, they rolled out a new software tool in days to help clients manage federal relief funds. It exploded in popularity. The company was hiring. Tom recommended me to be head of internal operations, overseeing HR, purchasing, systems, all of the behind-the-scenes functions that had previously been split between several executives. I accepted, got a huge raise and equity, and started 2 weeks later. It's been chaotic with long hours, but I love it. And the best part is, I'm back working alongside Tom, now as his peer. Looking back, I'm so glad I invested in keeping a respectful relationship with him. Corporate politics may have burned the bridge at our old company, but keeping that bond intact ended up saving me and giving me a much better future. This is such a satisfying ending. The company that undervalued both of you got exactly what it deserved. Tom is a unicorn. Tom sounds like the kind of boss everyone dreams of. Seriously, what an awesome human being. More people should be like Tom. Now you get to build something better with him. I've lived this. Big company undervalued me. I left for a startup, and a year later, I recruited 2 of my old colleagues. Sometimes loyalty pays off, just not to the company, to the people. Managers like Tom are rare, and it's no surprise his new company is thriving. It's wild how often money isn't everything is said by people making way more than you. Glad you walked away and landed somewhere with equity and a real role. I want employees like Tom. Even if he's better than me at everything, that just means I'd appoint him to lead the company and go do something else with my time. That COO can enjoy watching contracts walk out the door. Let me get this straight. Tom hired OP, mentored OP, and basically built half the company's talent pipeline, and the company still passed him over? And then when he finally left, they panicked and tried to blame OP for it. Like, what was OP supposed to do? Pull a magic promotion out of thin air? Meanwhile, the old company lost contracts, laid people off, and now Tom and OP are building something better together. That's the kind of revenge you don't even have to plan for. Do all the work yourself or get a 0. Back in high school, I was that kid who genuinely enjoyed science class. I studied hard, understood the material, and usually scored near perfect on tests and assignments. I wasn't cocky about it, but everyone knew I was one of the top students. So when our teacher announced that we'd be doing a big group project worth a good chunk of our grade, I felt pretty confident. I figured, no problem, I'll just do what I always do. Then I heard the catch. The groups were going to be randomly assigned. I remember sitting there with my fingers crossed, hoping to get at least one other person who cared about their grade. Instead, I got paired up with 3 kids who were all barely scraping by. The type who sat in the back, didn't pay attention, and only ever lit up when someone mentioned the weekend. Not exactly the dream team. Still, I tried to stay positive. Maybe if I took the lead, they'd step up. The first day we were given class time to plan, I gathered everyone at a table with the project instructions. I started going through the requirements, asking who wanted to do what. That's when one of them just leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said, "Yeah, we're not doing this." I thought he was joking, so I asked what he meant, but the others nodded, totally serious. One of them shrugged and said, "We know you actually care about your grade. You'll do it." I stared at them for a second, waiting for someone to laugh, but no one did. They had already decided. Their entire strategy was to dump all the work on me because they knew I wouldn't want to risk my grade. I was angry. I said it wasn't fair, that we were supposed to be a team. They doubled down. One of them even said, "Too bad. Either you do it all or we all get 0. That was the moment I realized what kind of group I'd been stuck with. They were so lazy that they weren't even embarrassed about it. They were openly daring me to take the fall for them. Now, I could have gone to the teacher. He was fair, and if I explained the situation, I'm sure he would have stepped in. But then an idea hit me. I remembered something important about that class. At the end of the semester, the teacher dropped your lowest grade. It was like a safety net. Missed an assignment? Bombed a quiz? Whatever. It wouldn't count toward your final grade. I had done well all year, so I hadn't needed that safety net. But my teammates? They lived on it. They were constantly failing tests, barely turning in their homework, and relying on that one free pass to keep their heads above water. If they got a 0 on this project, they wouldn't just shrug it off like me. They'd be in serious trouble. So I just said, "Fine, you win. I'll do what you say." They looked so smug, like they'd just tricked me into free labor. But really, I was already planning how this was going to play out. For the next week, while the other groups met after school and worked in the library, I did absolutely nothing. I didn't write a single word. I didn't make a single chart. Whenever my group asked if I'd started, I'd just nod vaguely and change the subject. They were so convinced I'd bail them out that they didn't press too hard. The day the project was due, every group came in with big poster boards, reports neatly stapled together. Some even had visual displays. My group sat there empty-handed, waiting for me to pull something out of my backpack. I sat in my chair, perfectly calm. Finally, one of them leaned over and whispered, "Hey, where's the project?" I said, "Oh, I didn't do it." The look on their faces was priceless. They thought I was joking, so they pushed me again. "Seriously, where is it?" I repeated, "I didn't do the project, remember? You told me either do it all myself or get a 0. I chose 0. They went pale. The realization hit all at once. They started whispering and panicking, trying to figure out what to do. But it was too late. When the teacher came around collecting projects, our table sat there with nothing to hand in. We all got a 0. For me, it was annoying, but I knew that grade would get dropped. It didn't touch my final average. For them, it was devastating. That 0 dragged their grades so low that all 3 of them had to make it up in summer school. I heard them complaining in the hallways for weeks, calling me every name in the book, but I couldn't have cared less. They had tried to use me, and it backfired spectacularly. Looking back, it's still the most satisfying failing grade I've ever gotten. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people's laziness catch up to them. I almost had the same thing happen in college. Big semester-long project, and my group assumed I'd do all the coding. I just let them coast, and then when it came time to present, I handed the slides over to them. They bombed the presentation because they hadn't read a single line of the work. Professor saw right through it and graded us individually. I walked out with an A, and they barely scraped a pass. Oh man, I actually loved group projects. Nobody ever wanted to be the one to present in front of the class, and I didn't mind public speaking at all, so I'd offer to present everything if I could do less of the actual grunt work. It worked out perfectly. My teammates did the heavy lifting, and I just had to stand up and talk. Win-win. Classic group project move. 3 slackers, 1 smart kid, and they think they've gamed the system.
Except OP knew the system better. Imagine thinking you're pulling a fast one, and then you end up in summer school.
Kids vandalized our Halloween display, calculating damages for handmade decorations. Over the weekend, a few houses on our street, including ours, were targeted for vandalism. The culprits were caught on multiple security cameras and turned out to be a group of 4 12 and 13-year-olds. They were arrested but released to their parents the same evening. The families are eager to sweep this under the rug and offered to pay for all of the damages with little argument. For the other neighbors, that's great, but for us, I handmade almost every single decoration, including the furniture they destroyed, and I have no idea how to calculate our monetary damages. I can calculate exactly how much it would cost me to recreate each item, how much it would cost for me to purchase all the supplies necessary to recreate each item, and how much it would cost to buy a similar item already made. I'm not sure which way to go, or if I should calculate my time spent making these things, charge for all the supplies purchased, or just the amount used. My husband grossly overestimates my skills. He thinks I'm like the Picasso of Halloween decorations, and thinks that I should charge the cost of supplies purchased rather than supplies used, and $15 per hour for the time it would cost me to recreate everything, which takes weeks. I've been working on our current display for going on 4 years now. Neighbors think I should charge how much it would cost to buy the item already made, which is notably more expensive, even factoring in $15 per hour, so I can be restored right now instead of having to make everything again. I'm leaning towards charging only for the supplies purchased because I obviously can't buy just the exact amount of fabric, paint, etc. that I'm going to use. So, how much do I request for reimbursements? Asking for an hourly wage for recreating your decorations is perfectly reasonable. $15 per hour seems like a reasonable amount to request. Do you have a way to accurately calculate how many hours it did and/or will take you to recreate or restore everything that was damaged? Another way to calculate the value of your time is to browse a website such as Etsy and look up the price for similar items. If 3 sellers are asking an average of $45 for a similar item you made, then $45 would be a reasonable demand, even if it only costs you $10 to do it yourself. Update. My husband, 2 non-crafty and unbiased friends, and I spent a few days going through pictures of the decorations pre-vandalism, pricing all of the materials, and comparing materials plus labor and expenses to store-bought versions, and those found on Etsy. My version was almost always cheaper, including labor and expenses, so we went with that for everything. After depreciation for things I didn't make this year, we still got a pretty high number, but we rounded it up and figured it would be a good starting point for negotiation. My husband met with the other parents and residents a few days ago without me. I'm a horrible negotiator and confrontational, and I'm not so good at keeping my cool. Surprisingly, they agreed to the rounded up amount with no argument. Yesterday afternoon, all 4 boys came over with their parents, accompanied by the police officer who handled the vandalism. The boys apologized, gave us each 4 handwritten apology letters, and then each boy gave us a small Halloween decoration they bought themselves to get us started on rebuilding our displays. It was a really sweet gesture, and they seemed genuinely apologetic and like they really understood the seriousness of what they had done. The parents handed us an envelope with the full amount we calculated plus an extra $100. When we questioned the extra, they said it was for inconvenience. One of the parents also gave us a jar of some homemade pumpkin butter and her own apology note. The officer asked us to sign paperwork saying we were fully reimbursed for the damages the boys caused that night, which we did. He's supposed to mail us a copy of the paperwork later this week. After today, the boys aren't allowed in the neighborhood at all for at least a year, but we don't think they will pull anything like this again after all of this anyway. It's been raining off and on all week, so we've had plenty of time to work on new decorations for our display. We finally started putting things out again yesterday. We still have a lot to go and probably won't finish everything before next weekend. Our destroyed display was 5 years worth of work, but between store-bought replacements, some donations from friends and family, and the things we've done so far, it's looking pretty good. Am I the jerk for calling out my wife for never doing the hard chores? My wife, who's 40, and I, 39 male, have been married for 7 years, and we have 2 kids who are 4 and 2. We both work full-time but have different schedules. I work a standard Monday to Friday 40-hour week, while my wife's job requires her to work Saturdays, so she takes random days off during the week to compensate. Both of our kids are in daycare during the week. When my wife takes a day off, she gets chores done like cleaning, shopping, laundry, etc., which is great. However, these are things that can also be done on the weekend. She often leaves more labor-intensive chores, like yard work, for me to do on the weekends. We have a 1-acre yard, so there's always something to be done. But it's nearly impossible for me to handle that on Saturdays when she's working and I'm home alone with the kids. I've talked to her numerous times about doing some of the yard work on her days off when the kids are in daycare, but she refuses, saying it's too hard. And yeah, I know it's hard. I'm the only one doing it. Even harder when I'm chasing 2 kids around. This means I spend nearly every Sunday doing yard work, leaving little time to relax or enjoy myself. We've argued because it feels like she gets a work and kid-free day to herself during the week to do the easier chores, but she leaves the more physically demanding work for me on my one free day of the weekend. After working Monday through Friday and then watching the kids all by myself on Saturday, I'd like to have at least part of Sunday to relax, maybe watch football. But instead, I'm stuck with the yard work. This past week, my wife took Thursday off and got some chores done. When I got home with the kids that night, she made several comments that really upset me. She kept saying, "We still need to mow the lawn this weekend. We need to trim some bushes and trees and bring the brush to the yard waste site. And I think we should rake up all the fallen pine needles and pine cones to use as fire starters." I snapped and asked her which of these things she was going to do since she kept saying we. She got defensive and said she'd be watching the kids so I could get that stuff done. I told her she was using the word we incorrectly because it sure sounded like I'd be the one doing everything. She then went off about all the things she had gotten done on her day off. I responded that I could have done all those things on Saturday with the kids, but that she refuses to tackle any of the harder stuff. I asked her when the last time was that she had the kids by herself when I wasn't home. She couldn't answer and called me a jerk. I told her that if I can learn to fold a fitted sheet, she can learn to use a rake, a lawnmower, or a weed whip. I also mentioned that I'm going to start planning time for myself on weekends, even if that means hiring a sitter, so I can finally get some time to relax. She thinks I'm overreacting and expecting too much from her because the yard work is difficult. You're the jerk for presenting this as being about equal labor when it's really about football. You seem to think that her midweek child-free day to clean the whole entire house entitles you to a child-free day to sit on your backside watching TV. All you're proving here is how little respect you have for the things she does to keep the household running smoothly. You seem to feel like it's not real work. Get earbuds and stream the game on your phone while you work, if it's that important to you. Or hire a lawn care service.
Imagine an entitled mother who coaches her own daughter on how to be rude to staff. That's exactly what happens in our next video. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap and come have a listen. Karen and I are already waiting for you. See you soon.